Hey everybody, welcome back to the Real Heroes channel and a segment that I have started calling Shane Hates Movies. And in order to do that, I have to have Shane on. Shane's been on the show a couple weeks now. We've had some fun and intelligent discussions about movies and television shows. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the idea of top tier acting talent doing large blockbuster IPs such as Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star Wars Universe, so on and so forth. So, Shane, how was your America weekend, man?
It's fine. It was good to see fireworks back again. They canceled them last year because of COVID. I mean, it makes sense. You don't want people crowding in, but lots of people out there last night, and my dog was terrified. So,
yeah, I spent 2 hours last night laying on the floor because both of my cats were underneath my master bed, scared to death of the war zone that was my neighborhood. So it was good fun all around. So let's dive right into this thing, man. This came from an interview that esteemed acting talent Stephen Dorff did with The Independent. Stephen Dorff, if you don't know who he is, which many of you may not, he was in Blade back in 1998, and I think that was pretty much the biggest thing he was in. He was in season 3 of True Detective on HBO, which apparently was good. I have not gotten around to watching that yet, but it does have Mahershala Ali, so I probably will check it out at some point. But he was doing an interview, and he was talking about movie roles that he's looking for and things that he might be a good fit for him. And the quote goes as follows: "I still hunt out the good shit because I don't want to be in Black Widow. It looks like garbage to me. It looks like a bad video game. I'm embarrassed for those people. I'm embarrassed for Scarlett. I'm sure she got paid like $5-7 million bucks, but I'm embarrassed for her. I don't want to be in those movies. I really don't. I'll find that kid director that's going to be the next Kubrick, and I'll act for him instead." So there is a whole lot to unpack there, and with Black Widow coming out both in theaters and on Disney Plus on Friday of this week, I figured this would be a fun little topic. Shane, go ahead. You hate movies and everything about them, as this segment has been named such. So what the heck are your thoughts on what this guy had to say?
I do hate movies. I do mostly hate Marvel movies. So it's going to be weird when I tell you that I think I disagree with them. So I'll say my short answer is no, Scarlett Johansson should not be embarrassed to be in Marvel movies. However, I do know what he means. I also agree that I think Black Widow looks bad, and I think it looks like a video game, and I will probably not like the movie. However, there's something to be said about the star power that being in these types of movies gets you. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at, who is Stephen Dorff?
It's Stephen Dorff.
I don't know who this is. I looked up his filmography. I've never seen Blade, so I don't think I've seen anything that he has been in. And so that kind of tells you the whole thing, right? Where it's you can chase all these tiny roles, but unless you hit really big on them and get some flash in the pan indie drama that really speaks to people, you're not really going to go anywhere with your career.
Right.
And I mean, you look at somebody like Timothée Chalamet, which is a good example, where he kind of hit early with these dramas and Call Me by Your Name, and then he was in Little Women, and he's
Lady Bird and all those
and so that's a different career path. And I guess he's doing Dune. I wouldn't put that quite on the level of doing a Marvel superhero, but that's one career path you can do. And I think that's every actor's ideal, I want to do that. Be in these critically acclaimed roles where you're putting on huge dramatic chops. You're making a statement as an actor. However, Stephen Dorff's career has not gone that way, and Scarlett Johansson's career did not go that way.
Right.
And so I think Scarlett Johansson, if you look at the movies she was doing, I pulled up her filmography before this movie. She was doing Eight-Legged Freaks and The Perfect Score with Chris Evans,
look at that,
which has a whopping 16% on Rotten Tomatoes. She did The Black Dahlia, which is 32% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the just completely timeless The Nanny Diaries. Also, He's Just Not That Into You, which my wife loves, but I don't.
I'm just not that into that movie personally. But go on, please.
So if you look at it, like before she did Iron Man 2, which I think was her first Marvel Cinematic Universe film, she was doing a bunch of terrible movies. And getting into the cinematic universe gave her a launching point, and it really turned her into a star. Before Marvel Cinematic Universe, she was doing, smaller roles. In a lot of them, she was like the hot girl role, right? And like every role she's in, she was just there to be like sex appeal for, 20-year-old male teens to go, or 20-year-old males to go watch the movie. And this is kind of like a good pivot point for her, where she became a star. I don't think her acting in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is good by any means, nor should it be. It's just not a role that you can really act around.
Well, and maybe in Black Widow,
it could be.
She could be, right? She finally gets to be the lead of her own story. And to be fair, in all of these other Marvel films, her role has gotten larger as time has gone on, but it's never been a Captain America movie or an Iron Man movie or a Black Panther or something like that, where she really gets to sink her teeth into it and be the star of the show. That could be different in Black Widow, and now she's got better acting chops from years of experience. So we'll wait and see on that. But to your credit, she hasn't done anything overly spectacular in any of these films, as have really most of those actors. I love the Marvel movies unabashedly because I'm a total comic book nerd. However, they're not usually the greatest showcase of acting on the face of the planet. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it's not a role where you're going to really show off how good of an actor you are. However, it is a role that's going to put you in the living room of millions and millions of people.
Yes.
And that's what it has bought Scarlett Johansson. So I think the word embarrassing is maybe a little harsh. I think maybe unfulfilling is maybe a better word, right? Do I think that Scarlett Johansson wants her iconic role to be the Black Widow? Like that, if she looks back on her career as an actor, I doubt that she that's what her peak is. It's kind of like Birdman, the movie, where it's like it's about an actor who's like gotten old, and the only thing people know him from is the old superhero movie that he was in, which is funny because it is Michael Keaton. And it's that type of story. These actors, they don't want to be known for selling out and making these blockbusters. At the same time, it's kind of the only way to get your name and face out there to the general public, so that you can then do all of these small things that you want to do. I mean, she went from he's not that into you to she's doing Marriage Story now, and she won the Academy Award, and she works with Wes Anderson and I Love Dogs, and now she's doing a lot more mature things. She was in Jojo Rabbit with Taika Waititi, and so it's like all of these films that you would try to get a role in, she's now getting them because she's that much more of a star, and she's really getting to show off how great of an actress she is in these roles. Whereas Paul, what's his name? Stephen Dorff?
Stephen Dorff. Paul? Who's Paul?
I don't know who Paul is. I don't know who Stephen is.
The instance of this video, Stephen Dorff is now Paul.
Yes. I don't even know his name. That's he has no right to say that,
Guy from
anything
Blade,
is beneath Scarlett Johansson.
I guess.
Right?
I don't even know who he was in Blade. To me, Blade is Wesley Snipes, and that's it.
Yeah.
But all right. Anyway.
But overall, I get what he's saying. And I think that 90% of actors out there would agree with him that Marvel roles are not where you go to make, as Martin Scorsese lovingly said, cinema. They're not that. They are solid summer blockbusters with a good management system around them with Kevin Feige. They're not Oscar-winning, auteur filmmaking type of movies. They're just not. Yeah, we'll see. I'm
holding out hope that the Eternals movie will
we'll see.
Take Marvel to its core and be great. And Black Panther got nominated for Best Picture, but it didn't win, of course. But that was the closest that the MCU has gotten. Even Infinity War and Endgame, which were kind of like Marvel's version of Return of the King, not even nominated for Best Picture. They're not. They get their little visual effects
Yeah.
Attaboys, and then they go on their way.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're never, I mean, I don't want to say never, because they could perhaps elevate themselves at some point. I don't think Disney's going to let them kind of risk that. It just, they have a formula. They're very good at the formula. It doesn't work for me, but like they've got a good established IP and fan base, and they make solid movies. And I think that's fine. And like they make $1 bajillion and they get all of these people famous, and that's kind of what it is. It is what it is.
Right.
At the same time, I totally get where he's coming from, that, you know, you don't want to be known for just being a Marvel character. Do I think it's embarrassing for Scarlett Johansson to do it? No, I think it's embarrassing for her to be doing the Nanny Diaries with the caliber of actress that she is.
Right.
But I get what he means, that he wants to be in better roles. And I think it's like maybe a good look in the mirror kind of moment, right? Where it's like, if you were in a Marvel movie and you got a big role, do you think you'd have more access to these roles? Probably, right? And Scarlett Johansson, I don't think she cares that she's making $5 or whatever million making this movie. I think she cares that she's now famous enough to do what she wants to do as an actress.
Yeah. Or executive produce, or direct, or write, or do pretty much, they have carte blanche at this point when they're that big of a draw to come in and essentially do whatever they want with whatever project it is they want. Robert Downey Jr. did a Dr. Dolittle movie after Iron Man died, and it flopped horrendously. And guess what? Netflix still allowed him to be an executive producer on an entire 8-episode television series because he's Robert Downey Jr. You know what I mean? Like, Chris Evans can go off and do a small crime drama on Apple TV, and then go do a comedy and do something like Knives Out, because he was Captain America and everybody knows who he is. So it's not even so much, obviously a lot of these people are very talented, as they have shown in their other roles outside of Marvel, but studios that are gonna give at least some tiny amount of money to an independent filmmaker to make a movie and go out and put something out, if they can nab somebody like a Hemsworth or an Evans or any one of the Marvel actors at this point, they're going to be more receptive to the idea of funding one of these films, because they know that they're probably going to make some of that money back, just because of the star power that's attached from, oh shit, Black Widow's in that movie? Yeah, I'm going to go check that out because she's awesome, right? Like, that's the snowball effect that comes from this. And right now, if a movie came out and they said it's blankety blank starring Stephen Dorff, I'd be like,
not going to see it.
Paul who?
Right. And I think like it's a weird like period in movies right now where pretty much the only thing that's getting seen outside of streaming is blockbusters, right? These big movies. I mean, like, there's no $30 million like indie drama. Comedies don't even exist anymore. They're all shows.
Oh yeah.
There's no Hangover that's coming out in theaters anymore. It's all your franchise films, your Star Wars, your Marvel, your like all of those, and then like you've got your big directors that can still command like a big budget. Your Tarantinos, your Nolans, like all of those types of Wes Anderson.
Even some of those guys are going to streaming. Scorsese went to Netflix for Irishman. He went to Apple TV for the movie he's filming right now, which stars Leonardo DiCaprio, who is like the last great actor in Hollywood that hasn't done an IP. I think is DiCaprio. And Cuarón did the same thing, like you said. He went and did Roma for Netflix, and you know, those companies seem to be giving more creative freedom to directors. Rian Johnson signed on to do the second 2 Knives Out movies with Netflix instead of I think it was Lionsgate who he did the first one with. It is a different time, you know, where smaller budget films that aren't guaranteed to hit home runs at the box office are getting paid a good deal of money to go to streaming, and they have creative liberties, and that might just be the inflection point that we're getting to, where that kind of more auteur stuff goes over here and the blockbusters are on the massive screen. And whether it's the right route for the industry to go or not is up to, you know, obviously your opinion, but it kind of feels like that's the direction it's moving into.
Yeah, I mean, let's a great example of this is Marriage Story,
Yes.
which those two leads are more famous because they were in massive franchises.
Yep.
And they're both phenomenal in that movie. They're
Correct.
Like, Adam Driver is too good to be in The Rise of Skywalker. Like, he is like acting his heart out, and the rest of the movie is crumbling around him. Much like his marriage in Marriage Story. But like, does Marriage Story get any critical acclaim whatsoever if it's like
Paul Dorff?
Stephen Dorff? I always have to look. Stephen Dorff and random no-name actress?
I don't know.
I mean, it might get acclaim still, but does anybody actually watch it? I doubt it. I mean, like, Adam Driver got a huge fan base, and like, he was in things before. Like, he was in Girls, and he was very good in Girls.
He was in Black Klansman. He was terrific in that movie,
Yeah,
but that came out after Star Wars.
Right,
you know,
and nobody knew who he was until he was Kylo Ren.
Nobody knew who he was until he put on the mask.
Oh God.
Bane reference there. Yes, nailed it. Anyway,
and then took off the mask and looked like an emo teenager. It's great. Yeah, he's great in those movies. But it's kind of that whole thing where, you know, you do your franchise movie. It's the Harrison Ford of today, right? Where there's like that interview in the documentary for Star Wars where, you know, like, how did you react when it was a hit? He was like, now I can get to work.
That's right.
And go do everything else. I don't, and like, every time you interviewed him, he's like, no, I don't want to talk about Star Wars. Fuck Star Wars.
Well, people ask him, they're like, what were your thoughts on blankety blank? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I think the most famous one is he was on, I think it was on either Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel. And they were like, how did it feel to put on the Han Solo outfit again? And he was like, it felt like I got paid. I was like, all right, you're a legend. Never change.
Harrison Ford hated Star Wars so much that when he was coming in to, like, the big spoiler of The Force Awakens is that Han Solo dies. Spoiler alert to anyone, the three people on this planet that haven't seen that movie. But I knew it was going to happen before the movie came out, not because I was spoiled, but because Harrison Ford was doing the press tour and he's like, I love it. I love what they did with my character. I'm like, oh yeah, he's dead.
He's dead. Because he wanted to die in Return of the Jedi.
I'm done with Star Wars.
I think he had explicitly asked George Lucas to kill him off in episode 6, and George said, correct. No, we need you to live because merchandise opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, we need the big happy ending for everyone. So.
Yeah, I mean, like, he said he should die because, like, you know that anyone's expendable at that point. Mm-hmm. Right, and it's a good, like, move. It's like the Dwight Schrute approach to filmmaking, where he's like, just fire somebody on the first day so they know you mean business.
Schrute
Farms. It's that, yes, it's that. But for Star Wars, kill somebody early in Act 3 so you know anyone can die at this point.
Yep.
That's another thing I hate about Marvel is no one dies. One, I guess, two people died in Endgame, but.
And then what's the first movie that comes out after Endgame that is actually Marvel Studios and isn't Sony is a Black Widow movie. But anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Star Wars prequels. It's like, well, we know what happens.
So this brings me to my next point on this. And I texted you asking this and you didn't answer me. So why can't we have both? Like, I just watched No Sudden Move on HBO Max, which is Steven Soderbergh's newest film. And without spoiling anything, it's a great movie. You should check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a gritty little crime thriller that's set in the 50s. And the three lead actors are Don Cheadle, who's War Machine, Benicio del Toro, who's the Collector in Guardians of the Galaxy, and David Harbour, who's the Red Guardian in the new Black Widow movie. Why can't we have both?
We can and we do. I personally don't like the Marvel films much because I like blockbusters that have a little bit more cinematic maturity to them. Like Jurassic Parks of the world, where you can tell there's a lot of, like, artistry and craftsmanship going into that movie. At the same time, it is a movie about dinosaurs destroying everything, right? Marvel to me is a little bit sterile. Like you don't get your big like Martin Scorsese cinematic moments. There's a lot of, you know, CG battles with no name faces. And, like, it just doesn't hit for me for that reason. And in my ideal world, most of the Marvel movies are more like that, more like the, you know, the, I don't know, Blade Runner 2049s of the world, where you take a big blockbuster IP and you add a lot of like fantastic filmmaking to it. Nobody went and saw Blade Runner 2049 because that's not an IP that anybody cares about.
Point counterpoint, right?
However, I do think that like there's a weird devolution, is that the word? Like the audiences have devolved a little bit because of what we've fed them. And it's like, this is where I always get on to like the exposition, where it's like, you know, that these like Hollywood producers are like, no, you have to spell out the exposition to them. And because you're like conditioning these audiences to like hear the exposition just thrown at them, then anything else is confusing, right?
Sure.
And I think that's where kind of Scorsese is coming from, is that, you know, it used to be even the blockbusters, even the Jaws, even the Jurassic Parks were made by Steven Spielberg, and he was putting on like a master class of tension and directing in them, whereas the Marvel movies feel more like this big focus group thing where it's like, we have this formula, it works, we're going to bring in a director to do a little bit different flair to it. They all kind of have the same tone, the same kind of story beats, the same morals. Like every origin story feels the same to me when I watch a Marvel one. And so I wish that we would go back to kind of more of that filmmaking-esque aspect to blockbusters. And like even like Pirates of the Caribbean, it's a great example. It's like, that's a big goofy pirate movie, but it's like really well done. Like that is like one of the best action movies in my opinion of all time. Like it's just so well written and directed. The first one, no, don't talk about the other ones.
Okay.
Just the first one.
Just making sure.
The only one that exists. We don't talk about the others.
Okay.
But the first one's just, it's really fun. It's really well done. The acting's great. Like freaking Captain Jack Sparrow is an iconic role, and like it's perfectly acted. Whereas you don't really get that in Marvel. Like you get your like, they're very solid. It's just nothing. Everything's a 7. There's no 10s to me in Marvel.
So I'd argue with you on that.
It's your high floor, low ceiling type of movie.
I'd argue with you about that with like Iron Man, right? So take Iron Man.
That's fair. That's fair.
But
I love Iron Man.
Right. I know you love Iron Man because we've talked about this. However, that movie is the first one that Marvel did as part of their cinematic universe. And it was a total gamble, and they really didn't know if it was going to work, right? So they pull in an actor who has a extremely colored history and past in the real world. Not sure what's going to work out. And it turns out that audiences love the quips and the jokes and the humor and the colorful pace and the idea that all of the superheroes are just, I am Iron Man, you know, like identities aren't secret or whatever. And now here we are, that was 2008, so 13 years later, we're still making the same type of movie. And I think that's the point you're trying to make is why can't we branch off and do something a little bit different? Like Doctor Strange. I love Doctor Strange as a character, and
it's
I thought
the same movie as Iron Man.
I thought that in Infinity War and Endgame, he was excellent. But in his origin story, it is like the Iron Man formula, except with magic instead of with technology.
It's the exact same movie. He is this asshole rich guy who gets shown that he doesn't have to be an asshole rich guy, and he can rise above it
and become a hero.
Same kind of thing. And like I know we talked about Christopher Nolan in our last video. And like, that's a good example of like, if you strip out all the comic book stuff, that's like The Dark Knight is a phenomenal movie on its face. And I feel like if you do that with most Marvel movies, they're not. Like they just don't have the same impact. They have an impact because of the nostalgia of the IP and all of the threads connecting all of the movies. Like the cinematic universe is an achievement. Like nothing has ever been done like that before. And I think that is a big achievement that they've done, but each individual movie feels like just the same to me.
So let's pivot on that then. And this will be like the last question that I have for you before we wrap this one up is, now that Marvel has branched off into television, we're almost done with the first three. We've seen all of WandaVision, we've seen all of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and we've seen, I don't know if you're caught up on Loki, but it's 2/3 of the way done. Are you seeing the winds of change blow through in regards to the television side of it? Because now they have more time to delve into characters and development and motivation, or do you think it's just more of the same from the big screen, just stretched out over a long period of time?
So I've only seen the first episode of Loki, and I liked what I saw. I liked WandaVision until it became a typical Marvel movie at the end.
So 8 episodes of really good, and then 1 episode of poo-poo. Right?
And maybe I hated the episode where they like explained everything too. The Shield episode.
Yeah, that was we're in the middle of the show and the audience is dumb. We need to explain everything to them.
Yes, that's the producer-written episode.
Yep.
It's terrible. I saw a tweet the other day that was like just bashing all of the exposition that producers make screenwriters put in their movies. And I wish that like enough people had enough balls to tell them to fuck off, because it is infuriating.
For sure.
But then I only watched 1 episode of Captain America, what is it?
Falcon
Winter Soldier.
You really only watched 1 episode of it?
Yeah, that was all I needed.
Okay.
First episode to me was so horrifically bad that I couldn't keep going.
Shane hates movies and TV
yeah, I do.
shows. That's what
it was
be called.
Yeah, I hated it. It's like it starts with the Marvel thing where it's people fighting no-name villains for no other reason than action, and then it gets into like exposition dumps, and then like it finally starts. I hate when people just randomly go off with exposition tangents. There's a scene in that first episode where Bucky walks up to the owner of the restaurant, and the restaurant's just like, there's some ice cream. My son loved ice cream before he died. The police said that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like what? Nobody asked you. Like this is not a natural conversation. So I hated it.
That show is better than its first episode. I'll
Fair enough. I heard like a lot of people didn't love the ending. But I'll have to get that.
So the ending was a Marvel punch-up, and that's kind of the way things seem to go with these things. So I, for one, have really enjoyed the television shows because of everything outside of the CGI shoot-'em-ups.
Yeah,
right? Like,
no, I thought like WandaVision, the relationship between Wanda and Vision, very good, very well acted, very well done. I really enjoyed that. I wish there was more of it.
All that was great. Falcon and Winter Soldier, you haven't seen it, but it dives into, race and why Sam Wilson gave the shield away because of living as a black man in America. It's hard to take up the mantle of the symbol of America because they've fucked your whole life up for a long time. And there's a lot of stuff involved in that I don't think you see in any of the movies because there's just simply not enough time. You can't do that in 2 hours, whereas when you've got almost 6 hours, you can get into that. But at the same time, a lot of people have been disinterested in them because they're like, it's not enough action. And I just want to like take a virtual club and just hit those people over the head. I'm like, these characters were here, and now they're here because they actually have something that gives them a reason to do the thing that they're doing other than I have superpowers.
Yep.
Which I think that's been the biggest benefit of the TV shows over the movies for me. And like, I feel like the way that Marvel should structure things, which I think they are moving forward, is every origin story is a TV show. And then once you latch onto that character and you like them and you understand their motivations, you graduate them into a big movie or a team up or whatever. So you've got She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, the new Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Ironheart, like all those things are all brand new characters that are being introduced in TV shows, not in movies. So hopefully they'll be able to use this different medium to flesh themselves out a little bit. And then that way, when they get into the big movie, you care about them already and those movies mean more. But
no, I agree. And like even in the first episode of Loki, where he has that like self-reflection moment where like he sees his future and like that's a big acting moment. It's
Yep.
Matthew McConaughey watching the TV screen in Interstellar. It's the same kind of thing.
Yep.
But he put like Tom Hiddleston puts on a good performance there. Owen Wilson is great in that episode. I haven't had the time to finish watching the other episodes, but I'm definitely interested in them more so than I have in any other Marvel things.
Yeah.
And no, I agree that like it seems like they're putting a little bit more risk into it. But at the same time, as you mentioned, like people are becoming uninterested because there's no action. And that's kind of my point as to like how the audiences have devolved, because the only thing they're watching is these highly like focused grouped, formulaic movies anymore.
Yep.
Fast 9 or whatever.
Making all the money right now.
Family. Okay. 9th movie in, we're still going with family.
And they're still making what, $70 million in opening weekend after a pandemic?
They're cleaning up every time. And it's one of those things where like, why would you put in any more effort than you have to?
Make it
like Jurassic World Fallen
Finish.
Kingdom made billions of dollars.
Did it really?
And, like, broke. Oh yeah. Like that movie tore up the box office. It did so well, and it's horrible. Like that is the worst Jurassic Park movie. Worse than Jurassic Park 3. It's terrible.
I don't know if I told you this, but I've been building up my 4K collection, as many folks have seen in our review videos of the discs. I wanted to get Jurassic Park on 4K Blu-ray. You can't buy it on its own. You have to buy it in a set.
Of course.
I went and found a set that was only Jurassic Park 1, 2, and 3 and Jurassic World. And I bought that instead of the one that has Fallen Kingdom, because I was like, I don't want to own that movie. That movie sucks.
It's terrible. Like we all talk about how bad Rise of Skywalker was, but Colin Trevorrow gives me absolutely zero confidence as to how that movie would have been otherwise.
Yeah, well, he's making the third one, right?
I know he is.
He's the director of the third Jurassic
World.
World.
Yeah, and the writer.
And yeah,
so I'm sure we'll get like another story about how the military wants to use dinosaurs, because for some reason the script notes on the first one and every review possible said that was the worst part of Jurassic World. And so he doubled down and made it the main part of Jurassic World 2.
Yeah. It's an auction.
So it's a bad guy auction. Okay?
At the Clue household.
There's like money signs rolling through the guy's eyes. And, oh God.
I don't know.
We should do a video about how fucking terrible that movie is.
Well, so I think that's a whole topic, right? You've got the start of something like a Jurassic Park, which is, universally loved. And as time goes on, it devolves into kind of the antithesis of what that movie was originally sought out to be. Same thing with the Jaws franchise, Star Wars. You could argue Back to the Future is kind of like that too. By the time you get to Back to the Future 3, that's just like,
we're doing it again.
We're doing it again. It's Back to the Future. Great Scott, Marty. And it's like that's the whole thing, right? Yeah. So Fast and Furious is the same way. I bought the 8-disc set because I haven't seen half of them, and I was like, you know what? I've got the time. I might as well watch them because everybody seems to love them. The first one is actually really fun. I really like the first Fast and Furious movie. It's this little small action movie about stealing DVD players. And now, like, apparently they're like on the verge of going to outer space.
Oh yeah.
In 8 and 9, it's like, how far can you take something before it's time to just like?
I think I saw Fast 5, I think, in theaters, and they were like going through a city with a safe attached to the car that weighed more than the car. And
it's like blowing through buildings.
Yeah,
and whatnot,
I was just like, I'm out.
I'm the Rock. And he's like huge and shit.
Yeah. We should do a video about that. How Hollywood ruins franchises.
They take something that's a cash cow and then bleed it dry until it's
Pirates of the Caribbean, another one that I referenced.
I still have not seen the 4th or 5th Pirates of the Caribbean movies because I just don't care. It's not that I refuse. I just don't care.
Yeah, it's like Johnny Depp doing Johnny Depp.
Doing the thing. Like, I'd rather go back and watch Curse of the Black Pearl 3 times over than watch the new ones because I know that I really like that movie.
Yeah. By the end of it, it's almost like Johnny Depp is playing a parody of Captain Jack Sparrow. And it's just like, we're bringing him in again.
Wait, the other movie that we made didn't make a lot of money? Johnny Depp, we need you to come in and act drunk again.
It's gonna be 85 years old, walking on like, some late night TV show. It's just like, you almost caught me.
A walker with tennis balls attached to the bottom. He's the guy from Up at the end of it, but he's doing the Jack Sparrow shtick.
Oh boy.
Well, I guess let's finish this with answering Paul Dorff's request. Should Scarlett Johansson be embarrassed, Shane? Yes or no?
She should not be embarrassed. However, I don't think she thinks it's her iconic role. That's overall my thoughts.
Well, there you have it, folks, from the guy who hates movies himself. Scarlett Johansson, don't be ashamed. Paul Dorff, you just keep on doing what you're doing. Guys,
please don't keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, or
do something better.
Best of luck finding the next Kubrick and working for him or her. I do wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Don't talk shit on comic books when you don't do all that much else. So that's going to do it for this video. Guys, we would love to hear your thoughts, so drop us a comment down below. And feel free to argue with Shane, and I will try my best to get him to respond to any comments that come through. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so for free by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, turning on your notifications, and sharing all the videos with your friends. And to go along with all those things that Shane hates, we're going to have a review of episode 5 of Loki this week. We're going to have a review of the next Star Wars Bad Batch episode, and we're going to have a review of Black Widow coming up this week on the channel too. So make sure to stay tuned to all of that. And until next time, we will see you guys in the next video.